But starting with kind of why integration matters. Over the years, the silos in software development have really grown up, and I think there are a lot of benefits of having these silos here, despite the fact that a lot of a large percentage of software projects are still failing. We've seen the testing silo benefit from centralized testing or the testing center of excellence, where there's really been a focus on how do we test better, how do we test more, and how do we get better quality out of our solutions. Whereas developers and some of the other areas have seen a lot of benefit from Agile. There are a lot of purpose-built tools, especially in the open source area, around the development world. And then operations, of course, there are things like ITIL and so forth, where there's a lot of process improvement that's happened in the operations world. The problem is that's really resulted in a lack of visibility. Information just doesn't flow between those silos. Since that information doesn't flow, a lot of the folks within those silos find themselves focusing on how can I improve the things that are immediately surrounding my role, rather than being able to look at the process as a whole and figure out how we can make this, the overall process, the overall life cycle, better. In this diagram here on the right, you'll see there are a lot of little red M's. They probably just look like chicken pox on the screen here. But this is an actual customer diagram, and every one of those little red dots represent a manual process in the overall life cycle. Each one of those manual processes mean there's a risk of losing traceability. There's a risk of bad information flowing from one group to another. And it also means that there's some sort of unnecessary weight that's inherently baked into the overall life cycle. And that's resulting in longer cycles and ultimately project failures as dates are missed. Historically, companies have attempted to solve the integration challenges with emails, spreadsheets, status meetings. We find that a lot today, and I think a lot of those emails, spreadsheets, and status meetings are stuck around because there have been attempts to solve the issue, and it just hasn't worked out, whether it's been brittle point-to-point type of integrations or something that is being developed in-house by your own developers. Everything works great for 3 months until you upgrade one of those endpoint systems. All of a sudden the integration stops working, the person or people that built that have moved on to a different project and aren't available to fix it, and so on and so forth. And I think that brings us back to the emails, the spreadsheets, and the status meetings, because people look at this and they don't think that there's anything that can be done to actually solve the problem, because it's been attempted, or there's attempts to solve it in the past that just haven't materialized. So what does either failed integration or lack of integration do to the overall life cycle? One thing it does is it actually results in failed tool deployments. And I'm specifically talking about test management tools or agile tools or ITSM tools, for example. And what I mean by that is that a lot of these tools are very specialized. They serve their purpose very well, but there's supporting information that needs to be there in order to really recognize the full value of that particular tool. If you take a test management tool, for example, you're able to manage your test cases, automate those tests, track the execution status of those tests. But those test management tools need to have requirements coming in the front end so that you know what test cases need created, so that you have traceability. You know when you need to execute those tests, and you know when there's an appropriate risk or appropriate amount of risk that you can afford not to execute those tests. And so if you don't have those requirements coming in the front end of that test management tool, for example, You look at that great test management tool that you just purchased a year later or 2 years later, and you're not getting the value that was promised or that you had hoped to see. Same thing on the Agile, DevOps, Lean type of initiatives, where there's a certain ROI, there's a certain value that you're hoping to gain by rolling out Agile or DevOps across your organization. If that information's not flowing, if you still have all of those manual or those delays inherently built into your processes, then you're not going to see the value of your Agile or your DevOps transformation because people just aren't going to be able to be as productive as they need to be when they can't interact with one another and the information doesn't flow freely across the life cycle. So that's where Tasktop and our partnership with Tricentis comes in, where we're focused on solving the issue and doing so in a real-time fashion where we can reliably integrate these various systems. We can make sure that the data flows freely between them in real time, and most importantly, so that we can make sure that, or that we'll make sure that all of the integrations are working all of the time. Regardless of what you might have tried in the past with an integration, this is likely what caused the most headaches in your integration attempts, is when the endpoint systems change, and inevitably they do, and they're actually changing faster now that there are so many SaaS or cloud-based offerings out on the market, and you don't have control over when they're changing. So we need a way to be able to validate that the upgrades to these various systems aren't going to break the integration. Because if the integration stops working and it breaks, that's when everybody gets upset. You start to reintroduce a lot of those, the weight, the lack of traceability that you had previously eliminated from your workflow. So at Tasktop, we've defined an integration spec of what every integration should be, and we're designing the integrations to that spec. And that allows us to run upwards of 500,000 tests each and every day to make sure that when Tricentis puts out a new version of Tosca, we can very quickly support that. Or if your Agile tool rolls out a new release, that's going to be supported. The goal is to ensure that you don't need to wait on your integration to be able to upgrade and start taking advantage of the latest and greatest features that your other vendors are rolling out to you. This is a list of the various tools that are included with Tasktop's integration or Tricentis's Tosca Connect that they're OEMing through Tasktop. So these integrations are available with Tosca so that you can connect to these various tools, and you'll see all of the different versions that are listed on for each one of these tools. That comes back to the previous slide where we need to be able to keep up with all of the integrations, all of the latest and greatest versions so that you don't have to worry about it. And one last slide here before I turn it over to Gernot, and he's going to get into a more specific use case around Tosca. But in this particular case, I just wanted to point out that again, this isn't about connecting one tool to another tool. This is about stepping back and looking at your entire life cycle and trying to understand how information can flow, how you can break down those silos that have existed in the past. And it really starts with mapping it out at the highest level. Once you've kind of mapped out that high-level flow, there'll become patterns that you'll start to notice, and those integration patterns differ slightly depending on the type of artifact that you're trying to integrate between the systems. And I'll give a couple examples. First of all, if you are integrating requirements between a requirements management system and Tosca, for example, you actually want to be able to define those requirements in your requirements management tool. Those generally aren't going to synchronize out to another system right away. You're going to wait for some sort of approval or baseline or one of your BAs to say, hey, this is ready for us to get it in the hands of the testers and the developers. And it's going to be more of a one-way push of information from your requirements management tool out to a testing tool or a development tool. On the flip side, when you start talking about defects, defects are going to be discovered by your testers, but you need a developer to fix it. And a lot of times with the defects, it's going to be much more collaborative, much more bidirectional in nature than when you're talking about requirements where it's more of a push. So those are a couple of examples, a couple of things that you start to consider when you start thinking about the patterns that are going to exist between the various systems and how you're going to connect your entire life cycle.
Hello and welcome everybody. I'm absolutely happy to bring that demo to you. What I wanted to start with is just one sentence I wanted to explain a little bit. I've been in software development for many years now, and what I think is the biggest change, and this is not new to everybody, I think, is what changed the software development is the speed. So about 20 years ago or so, when we were talking about integration, we were sometimes just talking about if a certain tool is able to export something to Microsoft Excel, and if another tool is able to import it. And when that was working, the integration problem was considered as being solved. So what we see at Tricentis, we are a software company, and we have a lot to do with software companies as a testing company. What we see is when we talk to our customers is the most challenging thing that changed during the last years is the speed that DevOps and Agile approaches brought into the software development. So it simply doesn't work anymore to do an import and an export to share data between tools. So many companies have a situation where they have mostly manual tests, no automated tests, and have several tools and try to adopt an agile approach and DevOps for their software development. So, and this is the challenge for a test tool, and this is why the sentence about the integration part of a tool is crucial for the quality of a tool is very true. So the orchestra which a tool plays in has a certain need for very fast interaction and very fast sharing of information. And I have prepared a couple of slides just to explain that a little bit. So I just want to show you an example of a certain feature, how it is being developed in an agile context. And so let's start with that. So first, development of a new feature in a software in a modern software development department often starts with an agile planning tool. So the lady here, this is the product owner. This is usually the person who has any kind of planning tool. But please keep in mind that this doesn't have to be an agile planning tool. So this also works with traditional requirements management tools. So if you have a requirements management tool that is not targeted towards a very agile approach, this would work as well. So this is where often everything starts. So in an agile planning tool, in a Scrum team, there is also a tester or more than one tester, so testing some testers who usually work with a testing tool. So in case of our customers, of course, work with Tricentis Tosca as a tool for automated software testing, along with manual testing and exploratory testing. Developers, of course, in a Scrum team, for example, use a development tool, and development tools often are integrated with CI tools. If you are wondering why they are grayed out here, it's just we won't cover that now in that demo here, but they are just here because they are important in that system. A CI tool ideally is integrated with a testing tool as well, so you can trigger tests, functional tests via the CI environment in certain events. And there is one very important tool. This is the issue management. So often the issue management is together in one tool with the agile planning tool. So in case of Jira or CI Agile Central also. So those tools are used by the testers and by the developers most of the time, maybe the product owners as well. So this is the ecosystem of tools. This may differ in certain situations, but this is just one example of how tools are being used and how they play together. So let's go quickly through how the development happens when we think about a new feature. So when we just rearrange this a little bit, so we have an agile planning tool, and the product owner put together a story. The story comes from the stakeholders, and the story is now ready to be developed. It's on top of the prioritized list. So this often starts the sprint here. So what happens then? The story goes to the testing tool and at the same time to the development tool. This is part of the shift left strategy. So you want to start testing early. You want to have immediate feedback on development, so it is crucial. It is absolutely crucial to have all the relevant information available in the testing tool and available for the developer. So the testing tool should have all the information needed for the tester to create and define the necessary tests in parallel to the development. So when testing starts and development is finished, the first version of the implementation to that user story, there might be a bug found by a tester in the via the testing tool, and this bug has to be available in the issue management to make it available to the developers. So developers often don't use testing tools; they are interested in their issue management tool. So this has to be very fast. This has to be immediately. So all the information available in the issue management. So once the developer has all that information, he can start to fix that problem. And so the bug is being fixed, and the developer makes this information available in the issue management as well again. And this information has to be also available in the testing tool, just to inform the tester that this issue is ready now for being retested. And once the test says that the fix is being implemented properly and the test is okay now, that's an information for the agile planning tool saying, okay, this story is now finished and the feature is ready to be used. So yeah, that's it. Basically how information flows between those tools. And in an agile environment, again, it's very crucial that this goes very, very fast. And this is what I now am going to demo with Tosca Connect, which is basically the white labeled Tasktop sync product we provide. So this is Tosca. That's the tool of Tricentis. It's a tool for automated testing. We have certain sections in our tool. We have, of course, test cases. They can be manual or automated, and we have a requirements section. The requirements section is not meant to be a fully featured requirements management, so it's more an integration point where we are able to synchronize the requirements with artifacts in other tools. This can be, like I mentioned before, traditional requirements management tools, or it can be agile planning tools, so we can synchronize those requirements here with the user stories as well. So that's about that. So I already explained the story. We are going to now demo here. So one important part here is which tool we are going to use for the planning. We are going to use Jira in that example. And we use this as an issue tracking, as an issue management tool here as well. So again, you can use any tool which is capable of handling those artifacts. So this is just an example. So let's start here. In Tosca, we have an insurance application we always use for our demos. This insurance application is developed to a certain point. So the insurance application, I can show it for a moment here, is just here for creating quotes. So a user can create quotes for his vehicle without the help of any agent. He doesn't have to call anybody. He just fills out a couple of forms and get an instant quote for that. So this is the demo application we are going to use for that. So how far we are so far? We are able to create automobile quotes and quotes for trucks. And we want to add a feature here. So how does the story start? So we want to add a feature here. We want to create quotes for campers. So how does this happen? So we go to our planning tool. This is Jira here, and we create a new user story. So we have some epics here. They create quotes. This is an epic. This has to be split. This can't be developed in one sprint. So the create quotes epic is finished in regards of automobile and trucks, and we will add a user story for that for the camper. So we create a story for the camper. So I prepared this. So that's how people often describe a feature in a user story. So as the owner of a camper vehicle, I want to swiftly create an insurance quote without help, blah, 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 and so on. So this is my user story. I just have to link it to the correct epic. So this is the create quotes epic. And once I am finished with that, I just have that created. So now I switch back to Tosca, and like I mentioned before, it's essential, it's very important to have this information available here. And what you can see here, immediately within seconds, this artifact is now available in my testing tool. So I might also want to add some additional information. So maybe I just have a certain discount policy regarding the camper. So I just add this to Jira, to my camper user story, and I also have a handbook for their insurance calculator. So let's add that one as well, just in case somebody's interested. And again, I can just refresh my view here, and within seconds I can see I have those documents here available in my camper story. So I get, as a tester, I get through that camper story and I define some tests. I already prepared those tests here just because we have to only limited time here. So I created a number of test cases. So this is how the test cases work in Tosca. So these are the values I validate against, and I have a number of test cases, different data combinations I want to test against. I created my test cases here, the campus here. Basically, these are the test cases I think I will need to execute to cover all the risk that comes out of that new feature for those camper quotes. I created a so-called execution list in Tosca. The execution list basically, oops, I forgot to clear the results. I will do that later. So the execution list is just here to put my test cases in particular order, and I am able to execute from here. So execution happens here. So what I then do is I want to just go to my new user story for the camper, and I just want to define that those test cases I created are covering the risk of my user story. So we in Tosca is a risk-based testing tool. You can use it for information about how your risk is being covered here. So that's the camper user story. I checked that in again to make it available to others. So this is how it looks like. I see here my camper user story. So what I usually do just for testing purposes and to have a good information, I do a short risk assessment. I set the frequency to 2. So I say I want just to define how much risk is assigned to my new user story here. So I say, okay, this is an information that usually comes from other departments. That's often taken from revenue reports or so. So I say the frequency of use is 2 relative to truck and automobile, which are more important. And I say the risk is about 3 for my camper, and this results in the total weight of 32. So I can see that my automobile quotes are more important because I sell more via automobile quotes more than via campers here. So this is the contribution, the risk contribution. So 2.68% of my overall risk is in terms of camper quotes. So this is my risk assessment here. So I can see here that I have all my test cases in place. This means the coverage specified is 100%. And I already have some results. It's because I already executed some test cases via the preparation for this webinar. I will just clear those results here. Okay, so let's go here. So I'm ready to test that now. The developer told me that he's ready to go. So the implementation is finished, so I can have a look here. So I have the camper here, so this should work now, and I'm ready to test this now. I automated those tests, and I'm only going to execute the first 2 tests here because this would take too long. It's just to show how this looks like when we automate, when we run those automated tests, and I built in a little failure just to show how we can handle those failure automatically. So the first test is finished. So we do a validation against the table you saw here. So we basically validate the prices for the different bundles of products. So the second test will fail. I just built in a little failure with the validation in the end. This is indicated by the progress bar here, and we see one is failed and one is passed. So, okay, so in Tosca we have an issues section. This issues section is basically capable of handling any kind of bugs and also feature requests, but we will not care about the feature requests. We will care about bugs here. So what I want to do now, first I want to mention this is not an issue tracking system. This is again like the requirements management. It's an integration point where we visualize bugs that are managed in external tools, but we are able to create those bugs here and add some information. So we have one failed test here. I can have a look what happened here. So at the price option there went something wrong. I have a pricing table. So my silver package obviously has a failure here. So I will just copy that information. So the silver package, when we use an engine performance between 1000 and 2000, this is quite a strong engine. So I want to create a bug here. So I just have to check that out. Oops, it's already, okay. I will create a bug now on that failure here particular. What you can see here on the left side, there is a new defect created. I just give it a meaningful name here. Give it a meaningful name and say, okay, this is engine performance between 1000 and 2000 shows wrong price for silver package. So I just add the validation text here. So the expected value was 856 and we had an actual value of 840. So that's the important information here. I check that in, so I make it available to everybody. And what I can see then, and again, it's all about speed in Jira. I refresh my view here and I will get that information immediately within seconds. I have that issue here and now it's available for the tester I created. This can be done as you like it. I created some custom fields here. I created a test status here. The test status is failed. This is the actual status of it. And I have the resolution here. The resolution at the moment is unresolved. I mapped this in Tosca to a status of none. It has no resolution so far. This is the aspect I am interested in, and now the developer starts to fix that problem. What I also created here in Tosca is so-called virtual folders. Virtual folders are basically folders which show a query result. It's like in Jira the favorite filters. How do you call them? So waiting for testing just means it shows me all the defects that have a test status of failed and have no resolution yet. So when I am now going to Jira and I'm the developer and say, okay, I'm just here in progress, I will set this to in progress while I'm working on it, and on a certain point when I'm finished, I will set this to done. then the resolution changes to done. And when I go back to Tosca and refresh my view here, I will see that the resolution changed to done here as well. So this is the second virtual folder. This is just a query saying every defect that has a test status of failed, but the resolution of done is ready for being retested. And I know that this defect has to be retested now. So since I'm not able to fix that failure now here on the fly, I will not retest it. I will just do what only administrators are allowed to do. I will just set the result to passed here on my defect, and now I can see I have two test cases here executed, and the status is passed. So the status here is still failed. This is easy to explain why it is like that. The reason is a defect in Tosca can refer to more than one failed test case. So that's a manual task here. So I am the tester and I decide when I want to have this test case being reported as okay. So I set this manually. And again, this information will be immediately available in my Jira system. So the testing status within seconds. Oh, I have to check that in, of course. And when I refresh my view here, it disappears from my filter because the status is done now, engine performance is done, and the test status is set to OK. So the information is within seconds available that this feature is ready to be released now. So that's basically how the information here flows in Tosca between those tools. It's a very, very exciting and much appreciated by our customers. So in combination with automated tests, this is what basically helps a lot keep up that speed in agile teams and in agile development. So if you're curious, you might want to know how this all works. You see, I didn't have to execute any manual tasks, so all the magic happens in the background on the server. This is the tool which we are talking about. I don't have to apply any scripts here. I can do that in a Tasktop sync by just defining my mappings here. This is really exciting. And yeah, so that's my demo, and thanks for attending.